Sonic, at its core, has always been a game about going fast. That was the crux of the character's very creation, so it seemed only natural that such a series would lend itself well to the racing genre. Mario could do it, so why not Sonic? There have been a lot of Sonic Racing games over the years, like a lot. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they're all pretty unique from each other. With the release of Sonic Racing Crossworlds, I figured now would be a good time to take a look back at all of the previous attempts and see which one I end up favoring more than the others. If you can believe it, there was never a dedicated Sonic Racing game on the Sega Genesis, only on their handheld system, the Game Gear. The game this is most closely analogous to is Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, being a sprite-based racing game that sees our little blue hero and his friends hop into go-karts, aptly named Sonic Drift, because a lot of what this game is drifting around corners. While it's certainly a cute game that has a sort of novel charm, it's hard to say it really stacks up with anything released since. Topping out at 6 tracks based on the levels from Sonic 1 and 4 characters, it feels more like a proof of concept than a fully developed game. It's cool that something like this even exists on the Game Gear, but beyond that novelty, it feels more like a curious footnote than something that will keep you coming back for years and years. The tracks are incredibly simple, which is expected, but is another thing that makes it a little hard to go back to. Still, it's a fun little side tangent in Sonic's history, one that, believe it or not, until it was released as part of Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube, was exclusive to Japan. At least some of the music is kinda catchy. This is where the ideas from the last game feel like they start to come into focus, albeit it still doesn't quite match up to its contemporaries. The tracks are a bit more varied this time, on top of just being more interestingly laid out, even if only slightly. That said, it still feels incredibly held back by the hardware of which it was released on. I wouldn't say there's anything worth utterly detesting here, but that also means there's not a whole lot that warrants high praise. As far as 8-bit systems go, it's a perfectly serviceable, inoffensive kart racer. There's a bit more to chew on than in the last game, but paradoxically, a lot less to say about it. Describing the first game is, in essence, describing this one. It's just slightly bigger, but not really more complex. This is probably the first Sonic Racing game a lot of people may think about, and for good reason. Despite its shaky reputation, Sonic R has a pretty interesting legacy. It was sort of the Sonic game for the Sega Saturn, at least the most defining one. It features what was then the core main cast of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Eggman, and Amy Rose, with a few unlockable characters such as Metal Sonic, Eggman Robo, and the Tails doll. Having only 5 tracks doesn't sound like a lot, and compared to its contemporaries, it isn't. But what it lacks in numbers, it tries to make up for with some light exploration. Each track is fairly layered with secret, alternate routes, and hidden paths. They usually lead to shortcuts or Chaos Emeralds that can be used to unlock Super Sonic, or the Sonic Tokens, which are used to unlock a race with the unlockable racers. The music is, like, really good. Like, the first music album I actually bought almost a decade ago good. Just maybe not super fitting for a racing game. The best way to play the game these days is with the PC version, which can be easily fixed to run on modern versions of Windows and restore the colored lighting from the Sega Saturn version. It's a fun, charming little time killer for an afternoon, but not quite that pitch-perfect Sonic racer. Most of the characters racing on foot is certainly an interesting idea, but it needs a little bit more refinement and more content. Still, it's a game I have a lot of fondness for. My own little diamond in the sky. This one is a bit more, shall I say, controversial. Gone are the go-karts. Instead, we step into a techno-futuristic setting and ride hoverboards called Extreme Gear. Previous games weren't totally devoid of story if you dug into the manual, but Sonic Riders is the first Sonic Racing game to have dedicated cutscenes, a more fully developed story mode. Introducing the Babylon Rogues, Jet the Hawk, Storm the Albatross, and Wave the Swallow, one of my absolute favorite new characters this side of Sonic Adventure 2. The story and cutscenes are a ton of fun and even managed to get a few laughs out of me at a few points. It's super shonen anime feeling and super fun. Sonic Riders absolutely oozes style from every angle, and really captures that sort of extreme sports angle that was the style at the time. The biggest complaint one could level against Sonic Riders is that it does a very poor job of explaining itself. It very much throws you into the deep end and demands that you sink or swim. Sonic Riders, conversely, offers a lot more depth than the previous entries. Chief among them are the types. Similar to Sonic Heroes, you have Speed, Fly, and Power, each with their own advantages and drawbacks. They each have their own shortcuts they can take. Speed can hop onto grind rails, Fly can hop off ramps and fly through dash rings, and Power can knock down obstacles. This is to say nothing of the various boards and bikes you have to play with. There's a lot to play around with, so you can easily find something that works best for you. The game feels like an absolute love letter to Sega fans, with entire racetracks paying tribute to games like Samba de Amigo, Crazy Taxi, and Knights, with Knights, Ai from Super Monkey Ball, and Ooh La La from Space Channel 5 as unlockable racers. There's enough to keep you busy for a very long time, and once you get the hang of it, there's nothing quite like it. Definitely deserves a second pass, or a modern re-release.
Alright, bring it on!
This is one that is sort of complicated. On one hand, it simplifies things from the previous game quite a lot. Chief among those things is the removal of the previous game's error meter, which, all told, makes the game a lot more accessible for people who may not have been able to come to grips with the intricacies of the original Sonic Riders. But this also comes at the cost of sanding away a lot of what makes the original so interesting. I wouldn't call it a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, it's just that simplification comes with a bit of a cost, that being the lower skill ceiling, which definitely makes it easier to pick up and play. I had a much easier time clearing tracks and completing the game's story modes than I did the original, but it also makes it slightly less satisfying to really master. Most centrally, the previous game system of upgrading your dash and attacking is entirely removed, replaced with being able to collect rings to upgrade your gear to take shortcuts, move faster, that sort of thing. There's still a lot to love here, and I can easily see someone preferring this over the original precisely because it's so much easier to come to grips with. It's definitely worth checking out to see what you think. a lot harder to talk about. To give full disclosure, I'm emulating this and playing with the No Connect mod for a variety of reasons. Chief among them, that I simply don't have a Kinect. The other being that I once did play this game on Kinect, and it was a miserable, nigh unusable experience. But on a controller? Yeah, it's fine. Definitely the weakest of the trilogy, even with a more conventional control setup. There is a story to be told here, but unlike the other entries, it doesn't have actual animated cutscenes. It uses a series of dialogue and character portraits. It's a presentation that feels stilted overall, which is unfortunate because it is the first and only of the Riders games to officially be in HD. This is also the game that introduced us to the current voice cast we've had for 15 years now, with some exceptions. Broadly speaking, the course design is pretty solid. It just never quite reaches the heights of its two predecessors, and that's kind of a shame because to date this is the last time we've had the Riders series, something that I still maintain has a ton of potential. Hopefully we can see it pop up again someday. 2006 was kind of a double whammy for Sonic Racing game. First Sonic Riders, and later in the year, Sonic Rivals on the PSP. Unlike the extreme sports vibe of the former, however, Rivals is a 2.5D side-scroller. The amount of playable characters is dialed back significantly, down to 4 racers in Sonic, Shadow, Silver, and Knuckles. There is a story here, but it's nothing too special or developed. Eggman, or Eggman Nega from the Sonic Rush games, is capturing the friends of the heroes, trapping them in cards by capturing their photo with a nefarious camera. Much like something like Persona 3 Portable, the story is delivered via character portraits and dialogue, but there's no real voice acting beyond the typical grunts and exclamations. The tracks are nice to look at and the music is nice, but as far as actual content goes, it's rather thin. You can unlock different cards that pay tribute to different facets of the franchise's history, but they don't really contribute to anything other than bragging rights. All the characters play identically, the major difference coming down to their special move. Sonic Boost, Knuckles slams the ground and stuns the opponent, Shadow uses Chaos Control, and Silver messes with the controls of the opponent, something really only useful in multiplayer matches. It's a charming little piece, but it's hard to call it more than a small distraction.
Sweet!
What Sonic Drift 2 is to Sonic Drift, this game is to Sonic Rivals. It expands on the original in every way imaginable. The levels are more colorful and distinct, the music stands out a whole lot more, there are more characters to play with, there's alternate outfits to unlock, the works. It's still the same framework, but the presentation has improved enough for us to at least have full voice acting now, for what that's worth. It's certainly a better game, it has more content in the way of what you can unlock in game mode, but it still feels as though you see everything the game has to offer rather quickly. That's not to say the game is bad, just not especially memorable. That doesn't have to be a bad thing, not every game has to be an 8 or 9 out of 10. It just makes both Rivals games rather hard to talk about because it feels like you say everything there is to say rather quickly. We're getting into more modern territory here. Gone are the extreme gear, and we're back into cars and more cars, and also bikes and arcade machines, sometimes. This is probably the most quote-unquote traditional racer of them all, with no real fancy gimmicks or frills. That's not to say the game is bad, not by any measure. It's just a very standard feeling racer, albeit way more balanced than most modern Mario Karts. A lot like Riders, it's an absolute love letter to Sega, but goes all in on that. Sonic is definitely the headliner, as you'd expect, but there's also Ryo Hazuki from Shenmue, Beady Joe from Crazy Taxi, Beat from Jet Set Radio, and even unlockables like Choo Choo Rocket and Alex Kidd. The tracks seem to lean in favor of Sonic 2, but there's also tracks from Golden Axe, Samba de Amigo, and so on. The PC port, unfortunately, is shockingly poor, lacking video options and the online component from the 360 and PS3 versions. Lacking also is the DLC character Metal Sonic. It's far from like the worst game ever made, but the PC version is a complete afterthought. There's still a lot of fun to be had, and it's maybe one of the last kart racers that focus more on purely running a good race than a chaotic cacophony of items. Worth checking out if you're curious. This is the big one, the one everyone loves. 2012's All-Stars Racing transformed, strangely dropping Sega from the moniker, but it's quickly easy to see why. The roster no longer consists of just Sega alumni. We now have Danica Patrick, Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph, Pyro Heavy and Spy from Team Fortress 2, Simon Lane from Yogscast. Sure, why not? Broadly speaking, the track design is amazing. The transformation mechanic between car, plane, and boat adds a lot of dynamicism to the track design. 1 minute you're on the ground, the next you're taking to the skies, or speeding along bodies of lava or water. There's a lot going on. If you're looking for content, Transformed has it in spades. From challenge modes, to the regular Grand Prix, to online races, All-Stars Racing Transformed is a game that will keep you busy for a very long time, especially if you're running to see everything the game has to offer. There's a reason this game still has a dedicated player base even 13 years later. This one is a bit more, shall I say, controversial? Perhaps that isn't the right word for it, and maybe isn't even entirely fair to say. Team Sonic Racing is a solid enough racer, it's just that the seams are a lot more visible than some others here. For some brief context, Team Sonic Racing released in 2019, next to Crash Team Racing. That wasn't the original plan, however, as the game was originally slated for a 2018 release before being delayed to the next year, most likely to remove the systems of microtransactions that were receiving an increasing amount of backlash due to games like 2017's Star Wars Battlefront 2. As such, you do still unlock items with in-game credits, but these credits are handed out like candy, and it's clear they probably weren't originally supposed to be. Many of the tracks are reused from the previous two games, and they don't always convert super well. Notably, the sky in the Thunder Deck track looks like that when it's not supposed to. As you can surmise by the title, it's no longer officially an All-Stars game, with the tracks and cast being cut down entirely to Sonic and his friends. They set out on behalf of the new Dundam Pod to test out his new cars, racing to see who comes out on top. There is a story, but much like Free Riders, it's delivered with character portraits and dialogue, and just like there, it feels like a budget decision rather than an artistic one. This was an acceptable concession on the PSP, but in 2019 on a PS4 or Xbox One or PC, it becomes a lot harder to overlook. The team mechanic is the star of the show here, where you and your teammates' performances are pulled together to see who ultimately wins. In practice, what this amounts to is that even if you individually do super well, it can be undermined very quickly if your teammates don't. The online component has been a pretty consistent point of contention, as getting a server running has been difficult as far back as the launch. The condition the game launched in feels, and there was never any DLC or post-launch content to make up for it. While it's certainly commendable to ship a quote-unquote complete game at launch, when you put it next to Crash Team Racing that was still getting new content after launch, even with its more scandalous microtransactions, it makes the game feel like it comes up short by comparison. Which one is the best feels a bit hard to answer because it depends largely on who you ask. But for me, my favorites come down to Riders and Transform. Riders isn't the easiest to play, but the style is absolutely unmatched, even today, 19 years later, and the skill ceiling is infinitely high, giving a game that feels oh so rewarding to master. Transformed, however, is the most balanced, well-rounded, and frankly, accessible game between the two. Both have a lot to sink your teeth into and can keep you coming back for more, even when you think you've seen it all. It's a bit of a cop-out to say both of them, so if I had to pick one as my personal favorite, it's probably Riders. But which one would I recommend to the average person? Transformed. Easily. And that's all the Sonic Racing games so far. Sonic Racing Crossworlds comes out in a few weeks, and I'm really excited for that. So excited that I played all the Sonic Racing games to this point leading up to it. And yes, you out there, I know, I didn't talk about the handheld versions or the kart racing in Sonic Adventure 2, but I didn't feel like watered down versions of the console games should really count, and I'm talking about purely the dedicated racing games, not where it only exists as a side mode. With that being said, there's a lot of good games here, and it'll be fascinating to see how Crossworlds changes my view of these, if it does at all. Until then, bring on Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Hey everybody, Saturn here. This is probably one of the most exhausting videos to put together yet. Having to capture footage from all the different games, compare them, and write about all of them, even if briefly. I was frankly a little burned out on Sonic Racing games by the end of this, so hopefully it doesn't sour my view of Crossroads too badly when that drops. Would you guys be interested if I were to stream that? It's something I've been considering since I haven't streamed in over a year at this point. I'd love to know what you think. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like and a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. If you want to see more videos like this video, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to be notified of all future uploads. If you want to support the show even further, I also have a Ko-fi page where donations go as little as $1. If you can't or just don't want to, that's fine, I get it. It's tough out there right now for everyone, and it's only getting tougher. Regardless of all that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again.